Hello everyone and welcome to a very special edition of EastEnders Weekly Extra, where we got to chat to Punk Mary.
Linda Davidson?
Yeah, she said yes. No, yeah, we got an amazing chat with Linda Davidson about her time as Punk Mary in the 80s and more recently.
Yes, and how she got the role as Mary on the show, and also her relationships with some of the cast members as well, her friendships. It's really interesting, and we hope you guys enjoy it.
Yes, it was really good fun to chat to her. So hope you all enjoy it, and we'll see you at the end.
On this edition of EastEnders Weekly Extra, we are talking to Linda Davidson, who played Mary Smith as one of the original cast from the soap, appearing back in 1985. Hello, thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you for inviting me.
We're very happy to speak to Punk Mary, you see. We're big fans. Big fans.
Oh, thank you. She's an amazing character.
Oh, yes, she really is. We had to clear it up first of all, though. Is it Punk Mary or is it Mary the Punk?
Well, I didn't have any preference. And then when I went back for that episode last month, usually on the credits it just said Mary Smith. But on the credits this time it said Mary the Punk in commas.
Yeah.
Smith. So I guess officially it's Mary the Punk Smith.
Oh, so
it's official.
Your official middle name is the Punk.
I think so.
We're going to start off then. Before you got the role as Mary on EastEnders, you obviously got the acting bug at quite a young age. You went to an Academy of Theatre Arts in London.
So, well, my story's quite. I suppose it's an interesting story or a different kind of story. So. I was in care as a young person, and at age 13 I went back to live with my mother, and the social services put me, because I was interested in dance and theatre, and those were the things that I said because I couldn't think of anything else that I was interested in.
Right.
So as part of my programme to go back to being with my mother, they introduced me to the youth theatre and to dancing lessons in Liverpool.
Oh, right, okay.
And so I used to go off on a Monday night, I used to go to my granddad's and after school, and I would have tea with my granddad, and then I'd go to the youth theatre and, do youth theatre-y stuff. And then at the weekends, I'd go on the train to Liverpool to do dancing.
Right.
And I just thought it was the best thing ever. So when I was 16, I stopped being a ward of court and I had to leave home, and I went to live in, had this amazing little bedsit in Liverpool, and it had orange handprints. Well, me and my friend Helen, we put the handprints all over and the footprints all over the walls. We thought we were so risque. And I used to listen to Michael Jackson's Off the Wall album every night. Obviously, it was vinyl because this was 1980.
Oh.
79 or 80 maybe.
Yeah.
And then I was working as a dancer in a working man's club in Liverpool and earning what I thought was really good money, and I was saving it up to go to London to go to drama school. And then one night, me and my best friend Julie in the whole world, and she still is, so I was sitting on the bed with Julie and we were watching A Kind of Loving, which was a film. It was a TV series. And actually, Tom Watt was in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, bizarrely.
Wow.
So we were sitting on the bed watching it. And aside from Coronation Street, it was the only northern accent I'd ever heard on the telly. And we just were like, oh my God, we're going to go to London and be actresses.
Like the Liver Birds.
Yeah, and do you know what? We got the Lady magazine and we got a bedsit in Balham, and then we booked our tickets from Lime Street to go down to London to our bedsit in Balham, and I got on the train and she didn't.
Oh no, so she left you to do it on your own?
And I left her to do it on her own.
Oh, I see. So you split ways there and then.
Well, we're still the bestest of friends, and I'm godmother to her 2 children who are in their 30s.
Oh.
So I don't know what it was about that almost 17-year-old that got on the train and went by herself.
Yeah.
But she did.
So how was it that you ended up from there to being on EastEnders then? What was the things in between? How did you get the audition and things like that?
So I got a place at Italia Conti, which was the only drama school I'd ever heard of. And so went there. And then as I was about to leave, the Stage magazine is a trade magazine. And usually it's like cruise dancers wanted to go to, I mean, can you imagine being on a cruise going all around the world dancing? It's like the best job ever. There was a tiny little 2 inches by 1 inch, I don't know what that is in metric. Essentially what it said was, an actress based in London that doesn't have a London accent, write to box number. So I wrote to the box number.
Did it have the BBC name on it, or was it still... No. Oh wow.
No. So I went off and then had an audition and then had another audition. And I remember sitting, and Tony Holland was looking out of the window with his back to me, and I was absolutely terrified of him. And he just did not give me any eye contact for my whole audition. And so in the end, I had to call him out. Well, I was I don't know how I did it, but I did.
Yeah.
And that's probably what clicked in his mind and thought, oh wait, this could be my Mary then, maybe.
I think it was, yeah. And also his idea of Mary was based on, he'd been walking around the East End and he'd been looking at characters and absorbing all of the characters then. And he had seen a young woman who had camouflaged herself in this very heavy makeup and hair, and she was pushing a pram with a tiny little baby in it, and being very gentle and cooing to the baby and talking to the baby. And it was a very poignant image of this woman who was so defiant, this young woman who was so defiant in her look and aggressive in her look, but being so gentle and gorgeous, and with the child that was in the pram that she was pushing. And he said that she was so fragile because she was tiny but had this big camouflage aggressive look, but said it was just so poignant, and that's what he based Mary on.
That was her guard, almost. That was her defense against the world around her. But the most important.
Yeah. And
baby.
it was such a powerful image for him. That's where Mary came from. And I suppose you saying that, I hadn't thought of that before, but you saying that maybe me being that, presenting that spikiness of saying, why have you got your back to me? I've never thought of that before. So then I didn't have a phone. Can you imagine a world without a mobile phone?
I just
can't. I can't actually.
As we're talking,
I didn't have a phone. So they said, we'll phone you. Can you write to us with the name, because I didn't have an agent or anything.
My goodness.
With the phone number of the phone box at the end of your road. So I wrote to them, pen and paper, and said, this is the phone number of the phone box at the end of Amherst Road in Hackney. And then they wrote back to me and said, we will phone you at this time. And then they phoned me and told me I got the job.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. I bet that felt quite amazing, waiting by that phone box.
It was very strange because then what they did, they handed me straight over to the costume department.
Okay.
So they told me I got the job. I didn't even have time to scream.
No.
It was literally, and here's the costume department. What size are you? How tall are you? What's your weight? What size feet have you got?
Oh my God! So it was instant. They wanted you. So did they want you to start recording or start rehearsals the next day, or?
It was in the next couple of days. Yeah. So and then I broke out in a rash on my face.
Oh no! So you didn't even have time to breathe.
No, I literally turned up for the first day of filming with a face full of eczema on my face.
Oh no! Is that where the Punk Mary makeup started then?
Well, they got it because of it, yeah. But it was actually quite good for me in the end because I got rid of all my nerves on that first day, and then they had to reshoot it because literally my face was falling off.
Was that the very first scene? Was that the one when you're in the square and you're walking around looking lost?
You don't live here, do you? That was my first line.
Yeah.
Because you used to film everything in sequence back when it first started. Wasn't all the scenes filmed in sequence by request of Julia?
So what what happened was we would film 2 days in the studio. In those days, you'd rehearse 2 days, then 2 days in the studio, and then you do lot filming, which is the outside on a Friday. And the lot filming, the outside, was often 2 or 3 weeks in advance. So that was definitely out of sequence.
Right.
But I think in the studio, they tried to keep it as much in sequence as they could.
Recordings were in the evening, and so you would start at a certain time, and then you, as you say, go through them in sequence.
Yeah, we would start really early in the morning, like 4 or 5 in the morning for makeup. And then we would be rehearsing in the morning, filming in the afternoon, then rehearsing, like tea time. Then we'd break for supper, and then we would film till 10.
Oh, so a long day, and that was 5 days a week?
6 days a week, yeah.
Six days a week?
Then you would have, because of the lot filming that was 2 weeks in advance, you would be working on your lines for 6 episodes at any one time.
Right.
But now it's more than that, because it's on for so many more days. It's on double the days. So what I noticed when I went back was how extraordinarily adept the actors are at context switching.
Yeah.
So they'd be filming one episode, say for a couple of hours in the morning, then they'd be filming another episode, and then they'd be filming another episode. And there were like 3 episodes within any kind of given bank of filming. And then they would be switching backwards and forwards for these episodes within a 3-week time frame.
Right.
So it was, it really was very, very different. And the actors switching context, scene by scene, must be exhausting.
Oh, absolutely, because one minute you're crying your eyes out, and the next minute you're happy as a pig in mud.
They work so hard.
So you mentioned that Tony Holland was quite terrifying, but there's a lot of people say that Julia Smith was quite tough as well. So, did you have a good experience with Julia Smith? Or
I had a fantastic experience with them both.
Yeah.
Tony was terrifying in that interview, but not anywhere after that. So Tony and I had such a loving relationship.
Oh, lovely.
Just such a loving relationship. And he worked a lot with a writer called John Maynard and another writer called Bill Lyons, and loads of other writers actually. But those are the 2, or the 3 of them I felt were, for me, and Tony McHale actually. Oh God, I'm just about to go and list a whole list of writers who I felt wrote really well for Mary. However, they were at the very start, and I'd done nothing, and they really helped me. They really helped me shape that character, and they were very attentive. And Tony was just the sweetest man. Julia, everyone says that she was very fearful, and she was. I mean, I there was one moment where I'd been in makeup, and the makeup department had given me a face full of makeup, which was glamorous punk. It wasn't dirty punk. It wasn't aggressive.
Yeah.
It wasn't this is my camouflage against the rest of the world look. And I was sitting in the canteen thinking, I don't know how to say to the makeup department that this is not the right look. It's too pretty. And I'd never done anything before, so who am I to go to the makeup department?
Yeah, who are you to judge or say that what's right and wrong?
Yeah, it was, but I knew it was wrong. And then Julia walked in. She strode in. And I can remember exactly what she was wearing, which was like a cream top and a pale grey pair of trousers. And she never wore trainers, but she wore shoes that were comfortable. And she walked in, she strode, and she walked straight over to me with a wet flannel, and she wiped my face.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But it was brilliant.
Yeah.
Because I didn't need to say anything to the team, the makeup team. I didn't need to be the one that said this is not right.
I mean, she knew how to control the ship. She had an aim and an ambition, and she knew exactly where she wanted to steer.
Do you know what? Julia was an incredible woman. When I left the show, she bought me, and I take it nearly everywhere with me when I'm nervous about something. Like today, I did something that I was really nervous about, and so it came with me. She bought me a carved soapstone scarab, which means a new life, a new beginning, a new something.
Oh.
And she bought that for me when I left the show. And it was an incredibly thoughtful thing for her to do, because she knew that I was going on to new things, and, you know, I would need support. I was a young actor thinking I was cock of the world and not really understanding how the show business worked, because I'd come straight out of drama school, straight out of care, straight out, you know, I'm being majorly successful. And it was an incredibly thoughtful gift. And so it goes with me, and just because it was so incredibly thoughtful, and Julia was a driving force in my life. But yes, she was terrifying.
But no, she has a reputation of just being so knowing exactly what she wanted, but doing it in such a way that it was, well, you see on screen, it's just perfect. You know, she knew what she wanted and she got it done, and it just worked.
So this is how it worked. It was Tony that knew what he wanted.
Okay.
He was creative. Julia made it operational, made it work.
I see.
So Tony would say, this is what needs to happen, and Julia would make it happen.
Right.
So that's how they worked.
They were a great team, essentially. One worked well with the other.
When you got the job and got the role as Mary, how much information did Tony give you about Mary's arc of her story? How much in advance? Because they had the first 3 years planned out in their heads, didn't they? I think.
Yeah, they did. I don't know if they ever shared the Bible.
Oh, didn't they?
There definitely was a Bible.
The Bible, the book, their plan, was it?
Yeah.
When you had the role and you had all those storylines, and obviously the ones that Mary had were quite controversial and quite dark for TV at the time, and even nowadays they'd be quite controversial. Did you have any sort of worries about how that might be perceived by people, like the storylines that Mary was going to have?
I don't think so.
No.
I wanted them to go further. So there was a character at the time called Mary Whitehouse.
She's notorious writing complaints, wasn't she?
But notoriously regulating, in the broadcast environment. So not to be taken lightly. However, she really, really did not understand the character of Mary, and was an advocate against that character, which was really interesting for a whole lot of people in the 80s, when you've got Thatcherite Britain, and then you've got a character like Mary who has nothing. And so the contrast was what the writers were trying to explain to the viewers, which is, we've got loads of money on one side, and we've got Mary on the other side. And so I don't think her comment was necessarily helpful. However, Mary did deliver a complex message, which is that there's a difference between Ian Beale, who's opening his chip shop, and then opening his empire, and what is very real for lots of people at that time. And the fact that she was Northern in a Southern show was not an accident.
No.
Because of the North-South divide.
Very deliberate.
It was very deliberate. And without getting completely over and above my station, I think it was a massive social comment.
Yeah.
I really do.
I mean, Mary had some real hardship when she was on the square, and she found it very difficult to find her feet, but her confidence seemed to grow. It's a strange juxtaposition. So although she couldn't quite find her way in work life or living, her confidence within herself grew, and that was interesting. Her confidence to her, she was able to defend herself much more coherently, and she was, instead of just passing something off, she would be very upfront with why she was doing something.
Yeah, I think that was actually, when we were talking before about the script writers, I think eventually they start writing for the person that they're seeing in the green room.
All right.
And I think that's probably where that came from, because my confidence grew as well. And I would certainly, I think the longer you're in a programme, the more the script writers write for your strengths. You're able to convey them.
You've got a whole new generation of fans.
Do you know what? It was extraordinary going back for that episode.
Yeah, the one recently for the Dr. Leg's funeral. Yeah. So were you asked back by John York?
So what happened was John and I have been mates for decades. And so John came into work to say, we need to get hold of Leonard. I was like, okay, well, this is his ex-wife's phone number. And hooked him up with Len anyway, because I still see him. And so he said, this is the storyline. This is what we're thinking of doing. So we bossed out the storyline together. And actually, it was very sweet because John emailed me and said, we're gonna do the Cable Street storyline that you're talking about, because I was really cross about the anti-Semitism in the Labour Party at that point.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about it. So then he phoned me up and said, Linda, do you think we could just sneak Mary into the back of the synagogue for Dr. Leg's funeral?
Oh, sneak her in.
And I went, oh, okay, that'll be a laugh. Because obviously Len and I are, so anyway, so I was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And then he phoned me and he said, well, we've given her a line, would you mind? And I said, nah, it's fine. And then he said, well, we'll just send you the scripts. So they sent me the scripts. And it was a whole bloody episode. And I said, no, but it was a whole episode.
Oh, wow.
Moment at the end. And I phoned him up and I said, are you serious? Are you going to pay me? And he went, oh, yeah, contracts team will be in touch.
Oh, wow.
So up to this point, I was just going to sneak in, and it was just going to be a thing for me and John to be having a laugh about. And then
Lofty gets involved.
Well, that was part of the storyline that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
That wasn't anything to do with me. That was when we were talking about bringing Dr. Leg back.
Okay.
Having lunch at Jamie Oliver's office where I work. And so that was always on the cards, that Tom would go back to play Lofty for that particular storyline. And that's what we were talking about. That's what we were busking through.
Right, okay. So you were helped with Tom in mind.
I was just saying, this is what we should do. Wouldn't it be a laugh? It would be brilliant. And because I'm so connected to it, it's like my family. Actually, it's more my family than my family. So then suddenly it was this whole thing. And I just thought, oh, well, I talked to my boys about it, my son and my husband, and they said, just do it, because it's 30 years and you've got a whole career, and you've got a whole other career, so it might be really lovely and interesting and a gift for you. And it actually was the most perfect present. It really was. Because I went back, and Tom and I reconnected, and Jilly, who I shared a dressing room with for 4 years, and Letitia, and obviously I speak and see with June all the time.
Yeah.
But it was the most perfect gift. But what I didn't realise, and nor did Tom, was that there would be this amount of fuss.
I can't believe that. You must have known.
No, absolutely neither of us knew.
Oh my
No,
goodness.
and in fact, we had a conversation about it the day before yesterday, because Tom was on his way to Arsenal, because he does all this stuff with Arsenal.
Yes.
And he wrote David Beckham's biography, and he's terribly successful in his own right. And no, neither of us knew. And we were talking about it. He was driving into London to go, I don't know what he was doing. He was doing something with his latest book. So he was in there going for this meeting, and he was talking to me on the phone and saying, I didn't realise we'd get this amount of love, did you? And I said, no, of course not. Why? It's like 30 years later.
Well, it just goes to show how excellent both Lofty and Mary were, though, that they've stood the test of time like this.
To Tony and Julia and the writing team, because they really created, we gave them breath, of course we did, but I really do think that they created characters that, and you think about Lofty and what a dork he was. But actually, he had, all the women falling at his feet.
Oh, did he? He was a Lothario in the 80s.
He was.
Oh, right.
Well, no. Sharon tried.
Sharon tried. Sharon and
Anita Dobson.
Anita tried.
Yeah. Sue Tully. What was that character?
Michelle.
Exactly.
I suppose he
and then
did.
Mary.
Yes.
Mary had her fair share of love interests throughout her time, though.
I know, but I think she was trying. I think that was income generated.
We were talking about all the original characters. You had quite a special relationship with Dot Cotton as well, and obviously you on screen, you and June got on really well. Was that through working together so much?
June's been how do I describe this? It's not enough to say that she's a mentor. It could be enough to say that she's a sort of mother figure to me. But we dip in and out of each other's lives. But she's always been very influential in my life decisions. And I just love her. Hands down.
She comes across as a very special lady, doesn't she?
So when I was started and they were doing all of those very emotional scenes with the baby, June would come and stay with me, and we would run lines, and she would say, "No, darling, you don't need to look at the camera like that, or you don't need to look there. What you need to do is this, and if you did this, then I think this is what will happen." And she talked me through it, and then we'd put cheese on toast under the grill, and we'd carry on talking about how we would do it. And she really, really coached me on how to be an actress. And this went on, her coming to stay with me for months, if not years. And there was one moment when her and I did a scene, and I got to tell you that the cameramen, some of the cameramen and the props guys are still the same as when I left. 30 years later, they're still the same. So, they've seen a lot, done a lot. It's just a job.
Yeah.
Great job, but it's a job. And we walked off set at one point, and there was just a stream of people that came out from the prop set, from the makeup room, from upstairs in the galley. They all came, and they just, as we walked off set, they just all came and they gave us a round of applause.
Oh, lovely.
It was extraordinary. That's never happened. And that was because of June.
Yeah. She's an extraordinary talent, and the character of Dot is it's wonderful, isn't it? It's just grown and grown.
She's just iconic, isn't she?
She is, exactly, iconic. Absolutely iconic. The scene with you both when you returned in the Vic, and you almost, a little bit of the old Mary came out of you, almost came out, and then Dot said, "Well, no, I did all this for you, and look how well you've turned out now." I love that scene so much. It's the scene of the year for me so far.
Oh, thank you. June rewrote that scene.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. So was it meant to be then? Was it just meant to...
No, it was Mary being spiky.
Yeah.
And Dot didn't say, "But do you remember, do you remember, do you remember?" Yeah. That wasn't in it. She rewrote those lines.
Oh, so she rewrote the part that she returned the spikiness to?
Yeah, so that Mary was able to say,
"Thank you,"
in a much more emotionally impactful way. And that's why I came back. Because otherwise, if Dot hadn't have said, "And do you remember I did this, I did that, I did the other," then Mary, that comeback of, "And that's why I'm here to say thank you," wouldn't have been so impactful. And she knew that. And that was a gift to me, though, because the script was really great. And actually, I couldn't read the script when I first got it without crying.
Oh, no.
Well, only because it was just so poignant.
Yeah.
The ending monologue by Leonard was just fantastic, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah, I love that man.
And it was so nice seeing Mary back. And actually, Mary looked like she's been doing quite well for herself since she's been gone. She straightened herself out. What do you think in your mind? What do you think Mary's been up to these 15 years she's been missing? Because we know what Annie's been doing as a job because she's a police detective, but we didn't find out what Mary had been up to.
So my backstory that I created for myself is that and it's based on a woman called Dr. Sue Black, who I have enormous respect for. So her journey, like me, but she had children very early, and she had 3 children by the time she was 19. And was in a very abusive relationship. And so she left and with her 3 children and went into a hostel.
Okay.
So like Mary, young child. So I projected that Mary left the square after she flicked the bird sign.
Yes.
And so her story was that she then went to this hostel and she thought, oh my God, I know I'm clever, but I don't know how to be clever. So she went off and went to a Sure Start and with her children, and they enabled her to get educated. She's now a doctor.
Yeah.
She enables women in technology. She's written a book. She is a visiting lecturer in lots of universities, and she's incredible. And so I based Mary's backstory on Dr. Sue Black's story.
A strong female.
Yeah, go and Google her. She's incredible. She's got this shock of dyed red hair.
Fantastic.
Like bright red, like scarlet red. She's amazing. And we are very connected. And I really, really admire her. So her backstory is what Mary's backstory became, which is that she left the square, she gave the V sign, and then went into a relationship, got into a hostel, and then educated herself.
Yeah.
And was able to provide opportunity for her daughter.
Yeah, similar journey. That's a really nice backstory.
Do you know, the one thing was that when I said to John, I think she should have a bob. And he said, are you absolutely start raving?
That's revoked, I'm afraid. That wouldn't do. Mary's not a bob woman.
No, there you are.
I mean, it was so great because her exit in '88 was so Mary. She come to the square running away from her family, and she left the square doing the exact same thing, and that was a nice ending in itself. But to have this later, to know that actually Mary did do okay, it's such a nice feeling for us viewers to know that she did it.
Oh my God, really?
It was just nice because it was nice seeing her exit like that as the feisty Mary, but you've always wondered, did she do okay? And knowing, having her come back for this one episode, and it's nice to know that she did it.
Oh my God, thank you. I mean, I feel that quite personally.
Well, you should, because it's you that brought the character to life on screen, and
yeah,
I mean, generations for 30 years are still looking up to Punk Mary even today, which is quite something.
Thank you. Thank you.
There you go. I mean, I think that'll be a lovely place to end it, because so thank you for your time, and do you think we'll ever see Punk Mary again? I mean, we'd love to see Mary every now and then pop in for some fish and chips.
Well, do you know, my fantasy is that they get Annie in there.
Yeah, and then you can visit Annie.
Yes, and I don't have to give up my job, which I love.
Win-win.
Yeah, we'll accept that. That's good. Linda, before you go, there was just a few things I wanted to talk to you about. We're such massive fans of Anna Wing and Gretchen, and obviously they're no longer with us anymore. We just want to know, what were they like behind the scenes and things? Did you spend much time with them?
Gretchen and Anna were incredible. Gretchen was terribly supportive of me as a young woman. Anna, what can I say? Anna was somebody that I was in touch with and loved, and she loved me until the day that she died. And Anna went into a home which wasn't ideal, but I used to go and visit her, and I would spring her out, and the two of us would neck a bottle of wine within 3 seconds flat.
Excellent.
And she was an incredible woman. If you've read any of the books that have been written about her, with the poets and Quentin Crisp and all of the people that she Angela Davis, all of the people that she gave refuge to in her flat in Great Titchfield Street. She was an incredible woman, and a woman that I loved a great deal. Gretchen was very, very different and wonderful in that she was a hoofer, and she had, much like myself, worked as a dancer in difficult circumstances and used that as her way to get out of her, the way that she wanted a different life, and that was her way out. And so we recognised that in each other, and very amazing, and both of them amazing women.
I'm just such a huge fan of both of them, and there's so little interviews or anything personal about them online that I've not been able to find. So coming first from you is the best thing I could find, really. But I'm just such massive fans of both of them. On screen, they just come across as such lovely, lively characters. You don't get people like that much anymore.
There's a lot of information about Gretchen. Well, there's a lot of information about Anna, and there are 2 books that Anna's been included in. There are a few films as well of her time with poets and artists, and how she, in her 1-bedroom flat in Great Titchfield Street, brought up 2 boys and housed loads of artists. And, she was an incredible woman and amazing. And I think, as young actors, we thought we knew it all. We were the world's leading authority on absolutely everything. And I remember Anna saying to me, "Darling, the one lesson I need to tell you before I die," and this was like 30 years before she died, is you need to learn how to pace yourself. It was the best bit of advice I've ever been given.
I mean, thank you so much for coming to spend all this time with us and go through all these memories, because it really is quite special for us. So thank you very much.
It's been very special for me. Thank you.
Well, there you go.
Nice in-depth look into Punk Mary.
Yes.
It was really great, and it was lovely that Linda was able to give us her time and talk to us. We chatted for, it's
for ages.
For ages.
Even after we stopped recording, we had a little chat about a few things.
We did.
Yeah, she was really generous and nice with her time. But no, it was really nice to talk to her, and it was nice to get all that insight into the show and how it all went on. So
yeah, it was really interesting. Don't forget, you can catch EastEnders Weekly, the regular programme where we do a sum up of the week's action on the square, plus some games and features, and it's available every week on a Sunday on your favourite podcast app. And you can get in touch with us on Twitter at EastEnders Week, Instagram at EastEnders Weekly Podcast, on our Facebook group just search EastEnders Weekly Podcast, or you can email us eastendersweekly@gmail.com. So thanks for listening, and we look forward to you joining us again soon.